Alright, so we'll make this a quick one. Last time I said certain things about Elden Ring. I know certain people won't like it, but I'm not a fanboy. I'm what you call the realist, the guy that falls right in between the fanboy and the people that hating on it. And the realist is someone that does something from a mechanical point of view, then throw in his personal opinion into the equation thereafter. I'm not going to personally promote anything if I haven't fully evaluated from beginning to end, or at least reached the halfway point. But I am going to state certain things based on where it is right now to where it is going thereafter. So where it is right now, as starting into the game, past the first 15% of the game. If you to start something and you start evaluating something the moment you turn it on, you start from something like a loading screen. And from the loading screen, you evaluate everything from the loading screen first. The time it takes for load, the amount of graphics it takes to up has to be factored in when it comes to any game, including Horizon, including Zelda, including Doom, so on and so forth, as well as text and so on and so forth. Text used for this game is a text from I believe it's a 16th or 17th century guy who was a text creator or a typeface guy from way back in the days, so they decided to use his font. I forgot the name of it. Gamodian or something like that. I could be wrong about that. But it's kind of inaccurate because I believe he was either on the Germanic side of his ancestry, and I believe this is either font is located more on the Romanic side rather than the Germanic side, because based on he grew up in France, so there's 4 or 5 different no, there are about 4 different types of lineage towards people who grew up in France. Those go in Northern France, Western France, Eastern France, and Southern France. And Southern France are the Romanic side, and the Western France are the Celtic side, which are, I believe, are Germanic, and the Northern side is something else. I could be wrong about the West, but the point is, I believe he grew up more on the Germanic side, or the Northern side, but not on the Roman side. I believe these fonts, according to his also typeface, are more Romanic, so that's kind of imbalance and inconsistency towards it. If you're going Celtic, then this is definitely not Celtic typeface, but this game is heavily Celtic based. But if you're going mixed Celtic with other type of cultures, then this is somewhat associated, but also mixed with Romanic type of fonts, so it's a balance between both. But Romanic isn't expressed into this game whatsoever. Roman style. I guess you could say certain outfits are kind of Roman, but most of everything in this game is more northern or Viking style slash Celtic style. It's actually idea of what it represents, but I have some of idea with towards it. The font is very popular font, but with regards to its actual foundations, it's not very Celtic, and it's not very I guess you could say Norseman type. It's more a mixture of both, so it's accurate, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but you have to also consider that as well. So I took a point off of that, because if that's what they were going for, they didn't hit it exactly as a beat. And you could be nitpicky, but that's the whole point of being critical towards something and evaluating it properly. You evaluate everything from the beginning. Its loading screen time is very good, but as well, you go from loading screen, you go into other aspects of the game, you get into it. I spoke on stuff such as pressing down on the button and everything. That's also good. But the text font used for the game as in the game is about average since Bloodborne games, so I took a point off for that as well. Like they're a certain size. It's like there is nothing within the game where you go to a system where you can adjust the size of the text. So that's a problem if you have eye problems. So that's something you have to take from the game as well. You can't just like something for liking something. You have to consider the various type of people. There's no such thing as adjusting the game for colorblind people. So those colorblind, I believe there are people who see more reds and everything, and they have to balance it off with blues, or it might be reverse. I don't know what, something like that. So there's no adjustment towards color blindness as well. There's no adjustment towards depth of field in the game as well. At least I haven't found it. So that's another thing you have to take off from the game as well. All these things has nothing to do with the game itself, and you can't say, well, this is the way the people made the game. It's like, no, you have to evaluate the game fair. If this game is going to win Game of the Year, it has to beat games that are willing to do those things and put those things. You can't go into a restaurant, a fancy restaurant, and eat at the fancy restaurant without following the rules of the fancy restaurant. But the fancy restaurant can't be prejudiced towards you because you look a certain way, even though you have the money to pay for it. You know, because then that means your fancy restaurant is selective against who can purchase your stuff in your store, even though you have the capability to purchase a certain stuff. So it's up towards a certain clientele, even though it's for everyone because it's a restaurant. That's where the whole fanboy thing comes in there. I guess you could put it under the snobbish type, not for everyone category. So you have to consider those things as well. And then when you start the game, whether you want to look at the information, you start the game from where you last left off, or when you very start the game, the press on the buttons for it is fast, and that's good and everything. And the use of the color for it against the blacks, the yellow and black and the gold and everything on the black is also good for it and represents a good aspect of the story. The fact that that this game probably was tailored for PC is obvious because you press down an X button fast enough, the loading goes fast enough. So that's the old thing from back in PC days. And so when you get into the game, you start looking at the world itself, the building of the foundation. You start from something as simple as the ground, and then you work up to from the ground. You look at details of the ground. Then you work up to something as details of clothes, and then you work from details of clothes to details of flesh. Then you work from details of flesh to details of an environment, and you work from details of environment to work to details of characters, not of the skin tones and everything. So if you look at the ground, it's very detailed. It looks very realistic, cuts, curves, so on and so forth. But once again, it doesn't have a zoom in and zoom out feature, so you have to take something away from it because you can't look at the nitty gritty details, and you can't increase depth of field to see it. So you literally have to come at the curve and start looking at something from the curve in order to see its details. Now, from a realistic point of view, if you look at a wall that's look like this, and you look at this that's designed, you would say that's kind of accurate, very accurate with regards to the game. So they put the shadows and the shades with regards to the curves, with the lighting hitting it based on that, is somewhat realistic, but not entirely. I would say not entirely because the intensity from this light should be more intense than the intensity of or because the light from here is more intense from the ground. It should contradict the intensity of the light from here and be more dominant. So you could say that's true. But the darkness in the room also you have to factor in the direction of the light coming onto the object here, and then you have to factor in the light from the object coming onto the object here. So it'll be angled like going here, and this angle will go here, and it will bounce off each other at this midpoint here. So one line going here and one line going here, and then whatever light creeping around the corner will come onto this area and go down to this towards this light, and then this light goes on to this, and it will fill it out perfectly, kind of like where it is right now, except you will see some shadows from the back as well, or some amount of intensities from the side, and some amount of intensities from here against the rock itself. But there is no amount of intensity, it's just one consistent line. I guess it's if you want to be nitpicky about it, you can, but if you want to just leave it as is, you don't have to. And then you work on stuff like the clothing of the object itself, like the clothing design of what the character is wearing, the degradation or the rough edges, or the Gaussian type of stuff, or the amount of armor, the shadows and rendering of color, the shoulder armor of the object, the whole overall. And then you worked on the second line of the object going towards the curvatures around the sides, and then you move towards the third curvature around the sides, which are of the armor. That's the third, to give it a type of depth of three-dimensionality. And then you work towards the light and the shadows that goes in between the corners of the object. And then you work towards the secondary light and shadows to go towards the object itself. And then you work towards the overall aspect of the armor, which is differentiation between the light and shadows on the entire object itself, which is the shoulders, going from the shoulders to the lower end of the shoulders, which is present here. So those are the main things towards any type of object, even from the stone face itself. So those are, and then you go into devils and the details after you get past those, which it does. But the imbalance of the tutorial has to do with mainly because, not the imbalance of the tutorial, but the imbalance of having one mode in the game, is because you don't have like a scaling of, you could raise your difficulty of the game or decrease your difficulty of the game. Since you have one mode and you have a tutorial to teach people how to balance and do things properly, because you have one mode, they have to learn how to do that on themselves. Correct? That's great. But the bad part of having that is that you now force this type of mentality onto your purchasers, whoever purchased the game, because they are aware that they're purchasing a game that's going to have one mode, that they're going to have to learn how to do certain things. The bad part about it is because you only have one mode, and you can't increase difficulty or decrease difficulty to learn how to do certain things. The time differentiation between one person learning and another person learning will be greatly separated. It will take them much more difficult from the average person to learn how to do everything than someone who's a gamer. And it will take them hours how to learn how to do something, simply because there's not a better way to do a tutorial to explain within the game. You just have a window to explain it to you how to do something. I believe within your inventory, or right here, I explain everything in detail based on text words, and it shows you images and what you could do. And then you go to an area that you practice it, but you practice that on average enemies, and that doesn't work all the time against certain enemies, but certain aspects of your training work against other enemies. So it's an intense, grueling thing that you have to do, and that's part of the game appeal, that you have to do it and to have one mode. But the aspect of that is that because it has one mode, because there's no increased difficulty, there's no real increase in challenge towards game. But here's the thing, a lot of people missed it. It does have an increased difficulty. When you new game plus the game, the aspects of the enemies increase in the ratios of difficulty as well, in order against what level you are right now. So it has an increase in difficulty. It's just not going to tell you that it has an increase in difficulty. It doesn't have a decrease in difficulty, but it does have an increase in difficulty, and that's an inconsistency. If you're going to place an increase in difficulty in your game, it's hidden in your game, to give some more challenge, you have to also have a lower and decrease in difficulty, or at least a way in order for them to do so for the average gamers. And if you're not going to have a decrease in difficulty because it's a single game mode, you have to have a tutorial to show them how to properly do something, not just something based on an image and words. Like, you have to have someone that they could practice a dummy or something, or an NPC character. They had one in the game. Here, when you go up, I believe you go into an area, and then this automatic, or not the two fingers. Here, if you jump over here and you jump down there, all these people, dead bodies, those red blood stains, represent people training against that invader trying to beat them. But it has nothing to do with skills. It has to do with increasing your stats. That's why I say the tutorial needs to be better. That when you do something wrong within fighting this enemy, it has to be explained to you. If it's not explained, you have to learn it on your own. If you're going to learn it on your own, it has to be based on your training from the area which you were trained at. It cannot be part of increasing your status within your equipment. It cannot be increased on increasing your magic, your strength, your dexterity, your mind, your vigor, so on and so forth, in order to beat that person. It has to be based solely on skills and solely on capabilities based on your training. This character right down here, that your SBC's character you're gonna fight, once you jump down here and run towards this bot, this enemy, is going to fight you, and is supposed to be a so-called training dummy in a way, to train you. Even if you're low level, even first start the game, it's there to punish you and to train you how to fight better. But this character carries arcane magic and casts spells and has stronger weapons and is a much higher level than you when you first start the game. So it's highly unlikely you'll beat this character, even if you pass the tutorial training. There's no explanation on how to beat this character based on tutorial training, and tell you to come back later when you become stronger. But even if you become stronger, you come back later, that shouldn't factor into you being able to beat it. You should be able to beat it based on your skill set, not based on you increasing your status of your health, your vigor, so on and so forth, or your strength and arms. It should be on you being capable, not based on what he has, because you'll definitely be jumping back, parrying a duck, because your weapon is going to be weak, and other aspects of you, what you're doing is going to be weak. And this person also drinks a potion to heal himself, so it's designed to make you fight him for a very long time, to see how long you can fight him for a very long time before you achieve victory, which is more likely that you're going to die and you have to. So this mode of this bot right here is forcing you to level up, which has nothing to do with training and skills. And I'm speaking this from a general point of view. I'm not talking about diehard gamer types or people who have beaten the game and come back to this on New Game Plus and say, no, it's based. No, if you've never played a Soul games, this game is not going to be for you based on those type of training. It has to be a proper evaluated training, and it has to tell you how to do things much better. And if it's not going to tell you how to do things much better, it has to be properly based on your skills and your timing capabilities, not to do with you leveling up to become strong enough to take this character down. That's another bad part about this game. So that's one of the takeaways. If you're going to have one mode and you're going to put people up against characters or dummies and everything, you have to have your tutorial based it on training for skills alone, not on training of you leveling up in order to take them down, even if you manage to do certain skills, because this character is going to drink potions. They are going to throw arcane powers down. They are going to be high level, and they are going to be carrying a stronger weapons while you're level 10, 5, 6 with lower level weapons. So that's an inconsistency within the game. If you're going to be inconsistent in the game, you cannot depend on leveling up toward endurance, mind, vigor, and stuff in order to beat this character. It should be solely based on how good you are, based on training, not you leveling up. And that's not what it is. No one could tell me that it's based on skills if you're starting the game off first and then you'll be able to beat this character based on 0 and you're just starting off. Because if you're able to do that versus starting off, you will have to do that multiple times in order to understand the mechanics and then execute that character and finish them off. And that will take you a very, very long time to do so. And if the game is telling you that you have to take a very long time, then the game isn't really long at all. The game is forcing you to take a long time to do something, rather than it's basing on your skills alone, punishing you to take a long time to do something rather than you being able to do it fast, based purely on skills. So that's another thing that's bad with regards to the game. It's not really based on skills. It's more based on you upping your status and also your skills. So if it was purely skill based, you'll be able to finish that character off purely based on your skills and your capabilities. But it's not solely based on skill and capabilities. You can't tell me that. You have to up your strength and stuff. And if you even up it 2 or 3 times, then that means the game is not based solely on your skills and capabilities. So that's a takeaway from it. If you're gonna have one mode, you have to do better at something like it. The second one I'm talking about is the invasion status. I said this in the previous video before, because I don't think I emphasized the whole point of having the one mode properly. So I just emphasize it there. by talking about tutorial inconsistency with you having to level up certain abilities of vigor and so on. The second one I'm talking about is the invasion status. If you're going to have invasion, might as well do it like Neverwinter. If you ever played Neverwinter, do it like that. If you're not going to do it like Neverwinter, do it like a D&D game or other D&D games. Do it like that. Sign a contract, accept the invasion. You're now part of a syndicate or faction, and you're allowing other invaders to invade you, even if you're in a boss fight or if you're in an area in the world and you're exploring and you're just taking out random enemies, and they see you while they're riding on horseback and decide to just mess with you simply because you signed a contract, because you agreed to do something. This game forces you in order to fight against invaders, and you know that when you were purchasing the game that you're going to invade it. That's not the issue. The issue is, here's the main issue: when someone new game pluses this game, they have certain items towards their advantage. If you go into a game and it's 2 against 1, you think it might be fair because 2 of you versus that one person, but it's not fair because you don't know who you're getting to assist you. There's no, I'm going to get a high level person to assist me in order to defeat this enemy. You could get just a random person just like you who've never new game plus the game, and this is a level 60 or level 70, but they have a new game plus the game. The person who's new game plus the game already has an advantage, period, because they already have great weapons, they already have high arcanes, they already have high magic, they already have certain incantations, whereas the guy that's helping you is 20, 30, 10, or even 40 or 50, might have those things but have very low level, so he's not going to hit hard, nor are you going to hit hard, nor the gear that they have on is going to be at the high level that you need for your capability to actually do significant damage against them, nor is your person that's assisting you if they're not high level enough. So there's an imbalance within invasion status, and that can be annoying if the person has new game plus the game already, or hasn't new game plus their game already and is already a level 70, level 80, and you and your friend or whoever are still at level 10 or 20. They will always hit harder than you, and there's an imbalance there. It has nothing to do with skills. It's like fighting this bot. It's like fighting the bot. Like I'm saying, fighting that bot, as that training bot. They invade you, fight that training bot, and it's 2 of you versus that training bot. But that training bot has certain things that both of you don't have. So it'll be a painful process. You might be able to defeat him, and if you're able to defeat him, you will already use up all your consumable resources. So whatever area you were in, you can't proceed to that area anymore. You will have to run back towards your lost grace, and then use your lost grace, and then the enemies in that area spawned all over again, and then you have to do that area all over again. So that's a very bad thing in the game. So those are the 2 major things with regards to the game. Depending on stuff and loading screen and button push, those are some added things towards the game that I was saying. But those are fine. So I'm going to go ahead and just continue to play my game, and I'm going to explore. If my network go down, that's fine. If it doesn't, that's also fine. So I'm just going to randomly explore things. Actually, I'm not going to do that, because when I randomly explore in this game, it's for the purpose of me learning things from the game, not for the purpose of beating the game and fighting bosses in the game and so on and so forth. It's just for me to evaluate the game from beginning to end. And I know no one wants to see that. They could find that in someone else's video, or maybe they could find that in this video. So I'll continue to speak on certain things as well, and play this game on my own time. And if I do play this game as a whole towards a story, see, that's the problem. I can't do this like Horizon. I can't just play the story like Horizon. This game is not like Horizon. This game is not like Horizon. It doesn't have a directional path towards a story. You can't get towards an end. Its story is all over the goddamn place. So you'll have to look to find his story, and that's a good thing. But you still have to look to find his story. It might take you a couple of minutes to find it if you know where to go. It might take you an hour, and then you have to get through enemies first to get to that story. So I'm not going to punish anyone for watching me trying to find something. This is, I mean, if I knew exactly where I'm supposed to go, I would do a full gameplay. But if I'm exploring, which I'm going to do in this video for today, I'm not going to make Elden Ring video continuation. Hasn't gone down yet. I'm going to point out like other things as well before I log off and continue to play this game. So those were some of the cons with regards to the games I've seen so far. Another cons with regards to the game, I'll get to some positives. I don't want to be completely negative about the game because the game is superior in many things, but very bad in others. Another con in the game, I'll leave this area because I can't do it. Let's go back to the entrance. Another con of this game, I really hate fanboys, man. They're really trying to pump up this game more than it's supposed to. They're not looking at it from a realistic point of view. The beauty of this world is from a fantasy aspect, not a realistic aspect. As realistic as buildings look, it's still from a fantasy aspect. If you want to look at how buildings look realistic, you know, you look at something like Horizon, or you will look at something like Call of Duty. How things look more realistic, how people look more realistic. So that's what I'm doing. So another thing about this game, because I already said what those two major things are: inconsistency towards the game being one mode and towards invasion. Said that already. Another thing that's bad about this game, and there are many good things, but nothing bad about this game, is, let's see, this. There you go. This is good. They improved this since the Bloodborne days. Go up, down, jump up, down. You press two buttons. I believe in Bloodborne you're supposed to run, press up, and then execute. I think it's the same thing. Yeah, it's the same thing. Alright, so what's bad about it is that in Bloodborne, and this is the game that came out so many years before this, why I still believe Bloodborne is superior to this in many ways, is that if you were to run and you jump, there's a range which you would go much further, and there's a range when you jump in the air, like jumping right now, and it comes down, you jump a little bit higher in the air in Bloodborne, and the time it takes you to swing your weapon to come down, you jump, press the swing button while you're in the air, jump, press swing. You see how his feet land on the ground and then his weapon? Well, in Bloodborne, if you run, you jump in the air, your weapon comes down the same time your feet does. Your feet doesn't land before your weapon does. So that's an issue. I don't know if that's something that they took away from the game, but why would you remove something that worked better in an old game and then decreased it in this game? The range for which you jump and do the attack is much better in Bloodborne. The distance when you do the attack is much better in Bloodborne. The height when you do attack is much better in Bloodborne. Certain things in Bloodborne is not better, and it's far better in this game, but certain things upon out in this game are far lesser. Let me see. What else? Let's look at it from a point of view. Oh, wait a minute. My bad. Yeah, you can't see the game. Stupid internet, man. I'm sorry about that. I have to start it again. Yeah, sometimes that happens. I don't know why. It says it's broadcasting, but it doesn't show the game. So at a certain point when you broadcast a game and if your internet starts to act up, it will record your voice and the game itself, but it won't show it. So I'll have to end this. Yeah, but you could watch at the beginning of the video what I talk about those two main things. Let me check on my cell phone and see if they at least were there. Yeah, they're there. So those two main things I talk about is there. It only went down and image stopped showing towards the end. So I'm not going to play the game any forward. I said what I had to say. I'm going to play the game on my own time. But those two things I said are in the video before actually image went out. So I'll get off and continue Elden Ring. It's a great game. It's a great game. Might win Game of the Year. But it still have problems since Bloodborne days. And I still think it's completely incompetent that they haven't fixed those things. It's baffling to me since Bloodborne days they haven't fixed a lot of things. And no amount of fanboys say, well, that's the way it is. It's not the way it is. If you haven't fixed certain inconsistencies in your game since back in the days, that's a voluntary choice you decide to make your game that way. So, and it doesn't take away from your game either to actually fix those things. You could make your game still difficult and fix your game without being still old-fashioned, because it really is old-fashioned. You know, you're not back in the Mario days. You're not back in the days when there was one mode. You're in the new days, and if you're doing things for nostalgia purposes, then you're doing it for nostalgia purposes. But you're in a different time, and you're in a different world in your mind, man. If you're doing that, you're doing that for a specific type of people, not for your general audience. There's a reason those games aren't made one mode anymore in this generation. A specific reason, and that specific reason's from a financial point of view as well as from a logical point of view. Someone logic could say, well, we could still increase give it the difficulty of that one mode, but just add more modes to it. To make a game one mode is a voluntary and specific choice you want to make towards your game. That's all. So I'm out because I know it's only my voice being recorded. So I'll play this game on my own. Incredible game, beautiful game. Might win Game of the Year, but maybe actually it might not. You still got those summer games to come, you still got the fall games to come, you still got the winter games to come. And Horizon Forbidden West has done many things better than Elden Ring, in my opinion, towards execution of graphics, execution of certain time-based execution of traversal. You know, you gotta look at everything from the smallest pebble to the largest thing.